Hello and welcome to Dada Fest International 2020, Translating Experiences.
We're your hosts, Gareth Belina and Kieran Estamal.
Today we're speaking to dancer and choreographer Dan Dorr. This interview touches on adult themes and uses adult language, so you might not consider it appropriate for children.
This interview was also recorded over Skype due to COVID restrictions, so we apologise for any effect this has had on the sound quality of the recording.
Hi Dan, thanks for joining us. Now, you grew up in small town Australia. What was the town called?
Whyalla.
You originally came over from Australia to work with Canduco. When and how did that happen?
So I started engaging with Canduco in 2006. I was exploring avenues into professional dance, and Canduco looked like the golden ticket. I started looking at the foundation course that they were running at the time, and through a series of conversations and doing a couple of workshops with them on various trips over to the UK, we kind of decided that the foundation course wasn't quite the right fit. So kind of kept the relationship up with the company, and then long story short, I came over to audition for the company in 2009 and then got the job the following year in January.
And what made you want to become a dancer?
I was always enamoured by it when I watched it. Being interested in dance and theatre, I joined a youth theatre company in Whyalla called The Faces of Youth Arts, and they were based at the local theatre, running workshops in theatre and dance and circus and singing, kind of bit of everything. And I really enjoyed dancing, but I decided to follow theatre and acting as a career path.
Were you worried that being disabled meant you couldn't be a professional dancer, and that meant you leant towards theatre and acting instead?
Yeah, well, I kind of, and again, it goes back to, companies like Australian Dance Theatre and Lee Warren and Dancers and Australian Ballet would tour to Whyalla. And I just see those bodies and go, I haven't got a hope in hell of doing that job. I don't see my body represented there, so I kind of went, okay, I do want to perform very much. I get joy out of dancing, but maybe I could have a good old crack at being an actor and working in theatre. So I auditioned for a couple of schools in Adelaide, and I was offered places in both acting schools. So then I was faced with a choice, but I decided to go for the degree at Flinders University Drama Centre. So I did that for 3.5 years. But while I was there, I became quite disenchanted with acting and theatre and really struggled particularly with the film and television component, because for me to achieve continuity is a nightmare, because my hand won't pick up the phone the same way twice. It just won't. It won't hold the cup the same way twice. I felt the whole time that my body was wrong and that I couldn't do it. So I was just like, oh, I'm gonna explore dance a bit further. So then I hooked up with Restless Dance Company, or now Restless Dance Theatre, and that changed my whole perspective on what dance was and who could dance and who dance was for. So that was kind of my journey from theatre into dance.
How does dance translate the disabled experience in a way that's different from traditional theatre and acting?
Dance for me is a way I can authentically take up space, and take up space in a way that I don't have to apologise for it. and to allow my body to do what it does, and kind of finding a way to be with my body I couldn't in theatre so much. So it's a sense of ownership over my body in a performance context, in a creative context.
When I see you dance, you seem very empowered. So do you find dance empowering?
I think because of the fact I was brought up non-disabled, so there's a lot in my childhood, I guess, I'd lost. And I'm now at the point through my career and my craft finding ways to get that back, because I learned through growing up. Like, I was essentially taught that having a disability is shameful and that it's something to be fixed. And through my craft, I kind of go, well, fuck that shit. It's not about that, and I actually don't care about what people think. Like, I care about people, of course, but I don't care about what they think.
Do you think then that dance is the purest translation of the human experience and therefore the disabled experience too? That it's somehow more honest than simply talking about it or muddying it with words?
It's something that has worked for me and does work for me, because there's as you just said, there's an honesty and authenticity. Over the last couple of years, I've found solace in not trying to make my body fit and embracing my physicality. And that's been quite a long journey for me as a dancer, to let that in and let the comparison between my physicality and an able-bodied dancer go.
So what's your process and approach when creating new work?
I very much work from that place of putting people first and the people I work with first, because in the dance industry, care is rare, and it's about making sure the people I'm working with are looked after and feel safe, and that we're creating a safe space for each other and what that is. So it's almost the work is secondary, because it needs to establish this sense of care for each other, and I want dancers to share what's going on for them, and I'm aware that it's just not possible to ask dancers to leave what's happened to them on the outside of the room at the door to then come in without that baggage. Like, I'm inviting people to bring their baggage into the space, because that's where there's so much in there we can safely use, and it's not about excavating trauma, it's about how can we safely share our lived experiences with one another to make rich, thought-provoking work that matters.
What are you currently working on at the moment?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm working on the Dandor show, which has been essentially 4 years in the making. It's taken on various incarnations, of which you were part of the first incarnation.
Yay!
And so it kind of started there, looking at inspiration and inspiration porn.
Sorry, can you tell us what you mean by inspiration porn?
Yeah, so for those out there who aren't sure what inspiration porn is essentially non-disabled people getting off on the fact that disabled people are doing things. It doesn't necessarily have to be extraordinary things, just the fact that disabled people get out of bed in the morning, and then non-disabled people being really inspired by that. I've been on quite a journey since that point of looking at inspiration and kind of going, actually the work is fundamentally about my relationship to my disability. what are my crosses that I have to bear? Because essentially in the first incarnation it became a work about ableism, and I didn't want to go there. It hurts, but it's about kind of my relationship to my disability, and if anything, my internalized ableism. And looking at that, where the piece is at now, is about looking at the relationship between my disability and kink.
Thank you so much, Dan, for your time, and we look forward to seeing more of your work in 2021.
You can find more out about Dan on his website www.dandoorcreative.com.
This podcast was produced by Little Commitment and edited by Pete Gledall.
This was a Dada Fest 2020 commission.